I was looking through my desk drawer about 15 minutes ago, and I came across an external hard drive, which is right there, that I forgot I had. And so I plugged it in and opened it up. And here I found videos and articles that I wrote, some from over a decade ago. So I'm leafing through these. And I came across one that, well, I forgot I had written it. As soon as I read it, I remembered everything about it. And I would like to read it for you. I had a dream the other night, not like most. I dreamt that an eagle came to visit. And then the strangest thing happened. He began to speak. He said, I've come to teach you and bring an answer for some questions that have been perplexing you for some time. Before I could begin to consider what this may mean, he spread his wings and began to rise in the sky, and somehow, don't ask me how, I was caught up with him and followed. We traveled for I don't know how long until we began to descend upon a landscape that seemed quite foreign and yet so familiar. It almost seemed like those 3D panorama displays that I'd seen in museums, although these were real people, and I was looking down at them. I first saw a man all alone. He looked very angry and cold and hard, not at all likable. The eagle and I descended and stood in front of him. What do you see? The eagle asked. I see someone who is unreasonable and cranky and not really pleasant at all. Look closer, he replied. And I looked. And as my eyes met those of this man, and I gazed deeply into them, I began to see a change. As I looked inside, I saw someone who was uncommonly sensitive, and in many ways unsure of who they were. They had been hurt when they were very little and never really recovered. And now, in order to protect themselves, they erected this facade of hardness and distance, shutting out all those who cared for him in a misguided but understandable effort to protect himself. And now, instead of a cold, hard man who I would just as soon steer clear of, my heart began to melt with compassion as I saw past the mask he presented and participated with who he really was. The eagle guided me away from my newfound friend, and as I turned, I almost ran into a lady that was flitting about and chatting and cavorting with a group of friends. It was obvious that she was and wanted to be the center of attention. She laughed loudly, you know the kind, and was almost boisterous in her mannerisms. Some were even intimidated by her. I stood in the back of the crowd and I watched. The eagle directed my attention to a little girl standing close to the lady, tightly gripping her dress. The little girl was quiet and timid and very unsure of herself. When she spoke, she never really felt like she was heard. And eventually she came to the conclusion that it must be because she didn't have anything important to say. As I watched the timid little girl and the loud lady, I realized that the outward bravado displayed was really a protection mechanism for a timid, unsure little girl inside. The brashness faded away, and I began to see the heart of a person before me, the generosity, the wisdom, the humility that only needed someone to show her her true self, to look past the outward and discover the treasure of the person he has always craved to be but didn't know how to find. The eagle pointed to a small boy who was standing close to me. I'm not even sure how he got there. I didn't notice him approach. He must have walked so silently. He was holding a small box, wrapped in a brilliant blue paper and tied with a bow. He didn't say a word, but when he walked away, I was compelled to follow. We walked to a nearby wooden bench that suddenly appeared, and I sat down beside him. He opened the box, and I saw it was filled with photos of people I knew and had known in my life. Some were those I admired and looked up to. Others I would rather have never met. Some had helped me, some had hurt me. Some I had passed by without even noticing them. Some had persisted with self-destructive behaviors, and it seemed no one, including myself, was able to make them see the damage they were doing to themselves. And on the reverse of each one was what in many cases seemed like a different person. I saw motives, desires, fears, wishes, hopes, and dreams, so many of which each person hid deep inside them, covering them with a mask of anger, fear, false laughter, bravado, and hurts and pains from years gone by. After I finished looking at each picture, and it took some time, there were many, the boy carefully placed them back in a box, retied it with the ribbon, and walked away. After a long period of silence, the eagle spoke again. You see, when I'm circling high in the heavens, I look down and I can see the smallest blade of grass. I can pick out a mouse within a thorny group of bushes. I can see past the rough and sometimes confusing exterior to the truth that lies beneath. So many of you hide in the thickets and trees and the long grass. So when you look at the exterior, they may appear as they did to you before this moment. During our journey, I have shown you that in so many cases, there's a truth that lay hidden so well beneath the surface, the true essence of who these people are. I've given you this gift that you may touch the person that lay beneath the thorn, that you may touch those with compassion who need it most, but outwardly seem to repel it. I sat for the longest time while I digested what I'd seen and heard. The faces of so many people cascaded through my mind. I began to understand, to see, and then, in a blink of an eye, I was back in my bed, staring at the ceiling. I had a dream the other night, not like most, especially considering that as I rolled over to fall back asleep, I came face to face with an eagle feather gently tied with a brilliant blue ribbon laying on the pillow beside me, and I smiled, and I knew tomorrow was going to be a good day.